Chelsea are another Premier League side who are in the States. Tonight, they take on Wrexham. That game live on ESPN. Then their opponents, Celtic, Club America, Manchester City and Real Madrid. It is, of course, the first pre-season for Enzo Maresca in charge of Chelsea. He sat down and spoke exclusively to James Olley.
Well, Enzo, thank you very much for your time. What was it about Chelsea that convinced you to make the move? Because you could have stayed at Leicester for another year and had a crack in the Premier League.
100% the squad, because I'm completely sure that the squad is a fantastic squad, full of talent. And I really like to work with young players because they are open-minded, they want to learn. Even the players that they are more experienced player, senior player, but sometimes because they play always or for many years in the same way, they struggle a little bit to change, not to adapt. While with young players, it's much more easy. So for sure the squad, and then because the club is a huge club, so it's fantastic.
You're obviously following Pochettino, who was reported to have some issues with the club over transfer strategy, forward planning, those kind of things. I mean, what assurances have you been given by the owners about the level of control that you'll have?
No, for me it's quite easy answer in terms of, I think manager and club, they need to go in the same direction, because if I go in different direction, it's no good. If the club go in different direction of the manager, it's no good. So it's important that we all go in the same direction.
And you're confident then that you've got a significant influence in terms of transfer policy?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely yes. Because as I said, it's difficult to judge the past. I was not here, so it's very difficult. The only thing I can say is that when you go in the same direction with owner, sport director and manager, it's much more easy for everyone.
How far away do you think Chelsea are with competing with Man City and Arsenal at the top of the league?
No, the only thing I can say is that I think City 8-9 years with same manager. Mikel is at Arsenal already 5 years. So it's normal that we start this year. I'm not saying that we need that kind of years to reach that level. Hopefully we can reach that level very soon. But the only difference I see between Chelsea, Arsenal and City in this moment is just the difference of timing with the same manager.
Stability.
Yeah, work with the same manager for many years.
I must ask you about Enzo Fernandez. Firstly, what's your reaction to the situation, please?
I don't think there are any bad intention in behind. So starting from that point, for me it's quite easy. You know, the player already did a statement, apologize. The club did the same. So there are not many things to add. But the only thing I can say from my point of view, as I said, that they are all young with a good intention, good guy, good person, good human being, and there was not any bad intention.
Wesley Fofana called it uninhibited racism. Do you have any concerns about the effect that it might have on team spirit?
I don't think so. I don't think so, to be honest. Probably it's the reaction, the immediate reaction, but overall, I don't think so.
Have you actually spoken to Enzo about it?
Yeah. I spoke with Enzo, but as I said, I spoke with all of them, and the situation is quite clear. He did already, a statement, apologize, and the club did the same. So.
James Olley joins us now. James, just picking up on the end of that interview, Maresca kind of saying everything you would expect him to say. From you speaking to people within the club, how much of a problem could this be going forward?
I think it is an issue. Look, if this had happened in October, say, during the Premier League season, they'd have been able to deal with it, I think, quite quickly. But because of obviously this happened on international duty over the summer with a new manager, it sort of had to have been dealt with in stages. So, as I say, it happened while Chelsea were effectively as a club on holiday. The manager can't deal with it until the players are back in the building. Some of the players are coming back in dribs and drabs because of those tournaments and the international engagements they've had. So they're kind of having to deal with it sort of step by step, and it's dragging on. Enzo Fernandez isn't going to join up out here in the US with the team until next Monday. So he had to address it the first time he spoke publicly before their first game out here. It's also worth noticing that he didn't have an unveiling in Stamford Bridge in London before they came out here. And I think part of the reason they didn't do that was because of this whole issue threatening to overshadow the sort of, the opening gambit of a new manager. So it has cast a little bit of a shadow over things. And, the fact that Wesley Fofana went public with how unhappy he was with what was said, I think just goes to show that there are some rifts that are going to need healing.
And it is down to Maresca, isn't it, really, James? Who has to deal with this? Who has to sort this out?
Yeah, absolutely. He has to. Look, I mean, he played it down, obviously, with me yesterday, and I can understand why. Credit to him, I think, to some extent for at least engaging on the issue. There would be some managers elsewhere who would kind of try to shut it down entirely and say this is an internal matter and we're not commenting on it. I thought at least he engaged on it. I think that's encouraging going forward from a sort of media point of view. But yeah, look, when Enzo Fernandez joins up next Monday, he's going to have some very difficult conversations with some of his teammates, and Maresca will have to head that up. I mean, at the moment, you would expect the captain in a normal situation to step up and be a part of that. But I think Reece James is a little bit uncertain about whether he is going to stay captain under Maresca next season. So while he's trying to work out his leadership group, Pochettino did the same last summer. He took a while to name his captain before he eventually settled on Reece James. It only leaves a vacuum at the sort of top of the club. Think of senior figures like Thiago Silva. Of course, he's not there anymore. He may have been able to mediate in this kind of thing, use his experience and his sort of presence within the squad. So yeah, it's going to fall on Maresca, and it's unfortunate for him really that this has come right at the start when he's trying to establish himself, that he's got to deal with this issue from the get-go.
Obviously, that's something that he's looking to do away from this issue, taking over from Pochettino, where some just see Maresca as basically almost a puppet who won't complain.
Yeah, and that was why I wanted to sort of get him on exactly what he'd been told by the owners in terms of his influence over team affairs, over transfer policy and those kind of things, because it has been the issue for Pochettino, for Thomas Tuchel. Of course, he only lasted a few months when the Todd Bowley-Clearlake takeover happened in when was it, May 22. So, Graham Potter only lasted 7 months. There were issues there about the sort of the day-to-day running of the club and who was making the decisions and how involved the manager was in those key sort of strategic calls. And so he's sort of towing the party line right at the start, as you'd expect. He's only just got the job. But, obviously, Dewsbury Hall, I think, is quite significant here. That's a signing that I don't think Chelsea would have gone anywhere near had it not been for Enzo Maresca. So I think that's a sort of, that's going to become a key test for Maresca. I think Dewsbury Hall's going to have to start pretty well here. If he becomes a key part of the team and he plays well in the opening months of the season, then that will embolden Maresca to be able to say, well, look, I told you to go and get this guy. He's doing well. Now I want you to go and get, X, Y, Z. But we all know that there are multiple voices competing. There's two sporting directors. There's obviously co-owners. There's analysts, scouts, and various other people who are all contributing to that transfer policy. And they've got an overall picture of trying to sign those young players and develop them at the club over a long period of time. And Maresca's sort of talking a good game about how he wants to work with those young players. I fear for some of the older ones in the squad when he's sort of saying, the older players, well, they can't change. The younger ones can because they're not as moulded, not as set in their ways. So, it feels on paper like a good fit in that Maresca's talking about being able to work within this structure and working with the young squad profile that Chelsea have amassed. But, the history will tell us that he's going to have to start delivering results quickly because the talk is cheap. He's got to do it on the pitch.
What's interesting, Robbo, is that obviously he talks about he prefers working with youngsters. Is that because they don't talk back?
A little bit. It's much easier working with younger players, and as Maresca said, you can develop them, you can change you can inspire them to do different things. Senior players are the more challenging players,
right?
Because they'll argue back. They might not like what you're doing. They could cause you a problem. And as a coach, you've got to be brave enough to say, well, no, this is what I want from you. You've got to do it. And then you've got the big decision. Do I get rid of him? Do I leave him out the team? Then there's the press sort of say, well, how can he leave him out the team? Well, the reason he's left him out the team because he won't do as he's told. And he's not part of the team pattern. So he has to be very careful how he goes about it. Develop the young players, get the best out of them, and manage the senior players. But if they aren't doing what he wants them to do, he's got to be brave enough to say, right, you're out the team.
The senior players are the first people you have to get on your side.
Right.
Because the senior players spend more time...
You can't pander to them.
No, but the senior players spend more time with the younger players than the manager does. And so the senior players are going to be at the young guys. Right. And the young guys are going to be listening and following and thinking about what the experienced guys are saying. So surely the first job you have is to get the senior guys on your side.
And there, what we were talking about earlier with Ian Rush, is the difference between certain clubs. At Liverpool, the senior players helped the younger players out.
Right.
Every club I played at, the senior players tried to destroy the younger players.
Well,
the last person.
destroy you.
No, not particularly. No. And there was a bullying. All the clubs I was playing at, the senior players would bully the younger players and didn't try and develop them. And that's what Maresca may be talking about. But he played at a good club.
The last players that the young guys would go to is the manager and the coaching staff.
Right.
The first people they go to are the senior players. It should be straightforward.
James, I felt we spent a lot of time, certainly early on in the season last year when talking about Chelsea, talking about a need for a number 9. Nico Jackson, of course, improved as the campaign went on. Is he first choice, number 9, that's it?
I think they are looking at options in the market. I mean, he ended up with 17 goals last season, which if you just look at that from a statistical point of view, not bad, actually, as a return, considering how much the team obviously struggled throughout the campaign. But no, I mean, they wanted to sign Victor Osimhen from Napoli, but the deal was just too expensive. I think they've got to shift some players before they would look at trying to get a number 9 in. They've obviously still got players like Romelu Lukaku on the books who was deemed surplus to requirements. They're in talks with Napoli to try and sell him on a permanent deal, having done a succession of loans and really kind of run his value down over that period of time. So Chelsea have got a little bit of accounting creativity ahead of them with PSR and trying to create some money. I think if they are able to get a few out of the door, I think the number 9 position is something they'll look at because, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about trying to close the gap to City and Arsenal at the top of the league, then they're going to just have to be more clinical in front of goal. And while Jackson's shown signs of being able to do that, I think the general consensus would be if they can find an upgrade, they will go and get one. But, you know, that's not going to be cheap.
What's interesting on yesterday's show, you were quite bullish about Chelsea. You were expecting them to improve.
I think
Why?
I think they're... Well, if you've got younger players coming in, which they've had for quite a number of years, if they manage it right and allow these players to develop, they've got good players there. They've got now a coach that likes working with young players, and he's a good coach. He was a good coach at Leicester, had a good game plan.
Wasn't Pochettino a good coach?
But he fell out with the hierarchy. Maresca may not fall out with the hierarchy. I just think that if you've got players that you've... And these players are good players. That they haven't been... If you keep changing it, if then you go and say, right, Nicholas Jackson actually isn't good enough, let's get him out the scene and get somebody else in, then what's the point of getting young players in the first place? So he's got to be given time to produce more quality from these young players. Otherwise, why buy them?
Chelsea, of course, in action tonight as they take on Wrexham. As always, all these pre-seasons, you can catch them on ESPN+. The tie also on ESPN as well. Kickoff is at 10 p.m. Eastern.